Mike Tobin, Fox News.
All right, thank you so much. As we're following the latest out of that region in the Middle East, and the most recent comments coming in from the president talking about this. Breaking news on social media saying Iran should have signed the deal, saying that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran. And of course, let's bring into the conversation right now assistant professor at UT Austin, focusing on Middle East politics and Iran, Dr. Nahid Siamdoust. Thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And President Trump just saying that within the last 10 or so minutes, saying everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran. Should they take that literally?
I mean, it's a very disconcerting message, and it's also a confusing message because Tehran is a city of something like 15 million people. It kind of expands and during the day, but it's up to 15 million people. And so evacuating Tehran doesn't really make any sense. Where are 15 million people supposed to go? That is, of course, from the Gaza playbook of trying to push people into places that are really not tenable. And it's also disconcerting because what are the plans? Are they about to nuke Tehran? Why should everybody evacuate Tehran? Because the Israelis so far have said that they're only attacking and targeting military and nuclear sites. We know this is not true. Having family and friends in Tehran and across Iran, they have attacked many civilian sites. But this is an extremely disconcerting message from the president.
All right, very good. I just wanted to get your take on that, your perspective on that. And this is also coming in from the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, saying over the weekend, I directed deployment of additional capabilities to the United States Central Command, protecting U.S. forces, top priority. These deployments are intended to enhance our defensive posture in the region. I do want to talk about what we've seen over the last week in terms of the conflict, the escalating nature between Israel and Iran. Let's talk about Iran in this. And of course, we're talking about the stability of it. How unstable is it in Iran compared to just a week ago?
I think the governmental structures are certainly less stable simply because, Israel has taken out a lot of the top military commanders as well as nuclear scientists, and it's been targeting political officers as well, such as one of the top negotiators or the person in charge of mediating between Iran's negotiating team and Iran's supreme leader. And so Iran certainly looks less stable the government looks less stable a few days after these attacks started.
All right, very good. I want to ask you, because we also heard reporting over the weekend that President Trump vetoed a plan by Israel to take out Iran's supreme leader. In terms of that, a regime change, is that something the Iranian people want? Is that something that could help them? Or what do we view in terms of that? Would that make it even more unstable?
It's a very complicated situation right now. Iranians are really in a difficult position in that, for many years they have been thwarted both by their own government as well as by U.S. policies from bringing about reforms and changes from within. But they've been working away at it day after day, working hard to imagine their own future and really, design their own future. And so now this moment has come where once again, we have a foreign power coming into the Middle East and trying to bring regime change to a people and determine their. And as much as Iranians are not happy with their government, they do not want, the majority of them do not want to have an Islamic Republic. They certainly do not want to have a foreign power come and determine their future for them. No less, Prime Minister Netanyahu, who has for the last 2 years been waging a war of annihilation against another people, which Iranians have been witnessing from their country. So this is not a particularly happy moment in any way for Iranians.
All right, very good. I want to ask you, because this is an area that you study so very frequently, being from Iran, how much has the culture, how much has Iran changed in just a few short time? And can a regime change bring back something that happened pre-1979?
I mean, that is the fantasy from the U.S., and it's definitely the fantasy from Israel to have a pre-1979 Iran with, Reza Pahlavi as the crown prince to become the leader of Iran. But Iran is a modern country. It's a modern society with highly educated people. This would be like asking if the U.S. wants to go to pre-1979 U.S. No, Iranians have, they've advanced nearly 50 years beyond, and they imagine for themselves radically egalitarian and democratic societies, far more progressive than what we see in the US, right? Because that is what they fought for during the Women Life Freedom Uprising in 2022. And so these outside forces with their weird imaginaries of some kind of pre-1979 Iran, that doesn't really gel with the majority of Iranians.
In just terms of this, you talk about that, wanting to be independent and whatnot. Do people in Iran want the U.S. to step back and let Iran and Israel hand it for themselves? Is that something that interests the people?
No, Prime Minister Netanyahu has shown that he's bloodthirsty. He has the blood of tens of thousands of people on his hands across the Middle East. He's attacked Lebanon, he's attacked Yemen, he's attacked Syria. He's attacking all the countries around Israel, all the while pretending that these are defensive strikes or preemptive strikes against other nations, while he is the one who's really bringing destruction to the region. So Iranians do not want to be left alone with Israel. And this is not because they have a love for their own regime, but because they have seen Benjamin Netanyahu's destructive forces across the region. And so they really would like the U.S. to step in for President Trump, who they do happen to like, to step in and mediate. They want him to stop Netanyahu from wreaking havoc.
And then would that mean a deal is more acceptable for the Iranians in terms of the nuclear? Because we've seen President Trump in social media saying that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Is that something that would be more encouraging to see a deal come to fruition about this in some regard?
Absolutely. And, even the Iranian government itself has said that it's not seeking a nuclear deal. And so to have, sorry, not a nuclear deal, but nuclear weapons, even the government itself has said so. And so I apologize for that. And so, and the International Atomic Energy Agency has been monitoring Iran for 2 decades. And it has been able to certify along the way that Iran has not enriched and is nowhere near to having a nuclear bomb as such. It's still about, I think they've enriched uranium up to 60-something%. And so Iran was in peace talks with the Trump government, and so Netanyahu just seized this opportunity to break off those peace talks because Israel fundamentally does not want for Iran to have a peace deal with the U.S. For Israel, it is, especially for its current prime minister, it's extremely convenient to have this war on his hands because his popularity was sinking in his own country with the war that, with the failed war in Gaza, where the 2 main goals were to eliminate Hamas and bring back the hostages, and he's done neither of those 2 goals. And so he's really just started this war, 1, to prevent peace between Iran and the U.S., and 2, to increase his own popularity, which apparently is happening because Iran has been built up over the decades by Netanyahu himself as this huge threat to the Israeli nation. And they've all bought the script, and they are behind him right now.
That leads me to my next question, to talk about perception, to talk about communication, because we saw the Iranian TV during a live broadcast, a state television reporter saying the studio was filled with dust after an explosion occurred, a missile landing there nearby. Well, how do we view that? How do we view the communication lines, and how much of a strain does it put on just the word getting out in terms of this when that sort of thing happens?
It puts a huge strain. And, the state television Iran is the state's propaganda machinery, right? This is a very difficult moment for Iranians because, they're torn between seeing some of these events happening, which is, the bombardment of that state television studio, which kind of, a lot of Iranians probably liked seeing, because over the years, that's been the propaganda system of the Islamic Republic that has fed Iranians propaganda and disinformation in the face of all things, and they've known it. But at the same time, knowing that this is happening from abroad, again, by the Israeli forces, that is problematic. And it does put communication systems, for sure, in great peril as far as the Iranian government is concerned, because that is the main way through which the Iranian state communicates with its own population. So that video of the bombing, although they have said that the programs are back on and that, they took a hit and within half an hour we're back on air again.
All right, very good. Dr. Naheed, thank you so much for joining us. Any parting words, any more thoughts that we might not have gotten to that you want to share with our audience before I let you go?
Just that I hope that Americans join Iranians in seeking peace and in bringing greater peace to the world and not greater war and destruction and death. Middle Easterners have seen enough of it. There's too much of it in the world, and that we all be, God's servants for peace.
All right, very good. And that's what President Trump has said, that he wants to save lives. That is the goal in terms of negotiating and working out peace deals in so many regions around the country, around the world. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your time here on Live Now from Fox.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, thank you so much. All right, great conversation here on Live Now as we're continuing to follow the latest, a live look there in Washington, D.C. at